There's been a ton of chatter recently about Chris Paul. And no, I'm not talking about Kim Kardashian. Boogie Cousins said recently on an interview,
every time I hear a top 5 PG list, Chris Paul is in it, and I'm not really understanding why. Strictly from an accolades and a performance standpoint, I don't think Chris Paul is top 5.
And guess what? Boogie straight nailed it. Chris Paul is a first ballot Hall of Famer and probably the best pure point guard of his era. But an all-time top 5? No chance. He may not even be a top 10, but we'll rank them later. And if you watch this entire video, we're going to tell you why the debate needs to stop right now. And also going to reveal all the players that are ahead of him on the list, which actually includes Smush Parker. Nah, okay, I'm kidding. But before we get started, if you can click the thumbs up button to like this video, also hit that subscribe button. It will just take a second of your time and really help us grow. If you think about it, Chris Paul is a complete overachiever. I mean, at 6 foot even, he's not overly athletic, and he plays basketball, the sport where other guys are mostly 6'5" and can jump out of the gym. He's a lot of the times the best player on the court too. Chris Paul's basketball IQ and leadership skills have helped him have a successful 18-year NBA career. When talking about Chris Paul, his critics will say, I never won a championship. And yes, that's true, but it's just a part of why he's not top 5, and only a small part at that. He's not the only top point guard that hasn't won a championship. And when you look around NBA history, there's always all-time greats at every position that never win a ring. Think about it. Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, Karl Malone, the list goes on and on. It doesn't diminish how great they are. It just means they can never be number 1 on any list. Basketball is a team sport, and sometimes it's all about how the cards fall. One of the biggest stories about Chris Paul is something that didn't even happen, and that's the infamous trade that got nixed by David Stern from the Hornets to the Lakers. Chris Paul would have been balling with Kobe Bryant at the prime of his career. Add in Pau Gasol, they would have had a real shot at going on a multi-year run. Of course, they would have had a hard time with LeBron's Heat that we've talked about in other videos, but Chris Paul would have been viewed very differently than he is now. Don't get me wrong, Chris Paul made teams better everywhere he played. You look at his time on the Hornets when he entered the league, they were a disaster when he got there. In his first 6 years in the league, he took New Orleans to the playoffs in 3 of those years with only a very average team. He lost to Duncan's Spurs, Kobe's Lakers, and Dirk's Mavericks, 3 all-timers. He was never going to win a championship there, and it was his time to leave. Probably the most electric era of Chris Paul's career was Lob City in LA with the Clippers. This team was one of the most exciting teams, with a young, athletic Blake Griffin who could jump over Kias, DeAndre Jordan, and Paul running the point. The Clippers made the playoffs all 6 years during his time there. While Chris Paul had the team near the top of the seeding every year, the team never even made the Western Conference Finals and was looked at as an overall disappointment. But nevertheless, Chris Paul had a team that pretty much had never been relevant in their franchise's history up until that point. That's something that should be commended. I mean, he won with Donald Sterling as an owner. That has to mean something, right? Once again, Chris Paul overstayed his time and left for Houston. Houston was the perfect fit for Paul. The Rockets attempted to team Paul up with a not quite fat yet James Harden after the failed Dwight Howard experiment. And up until today, nobody knows how it all went wrong. Paul and Harden seemed like the perfect duo. Before Paul got there, Harden was playing mostly ISO ball and it was a one-on-one show on offense. Chris Paul is also ball dominant, so that had Harden playing off the ball a bit. Now, it wasn't supposed to work because Chris Paul is also ball dominant, so that had Harden playing off ball, which really helped the team with ball movement. The team is looked at as a failure, but truth be told, this team should have and would have knocked off the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals in 2017-2018 season. This was the Warriors super team. The one, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, oh yeah, throw Kevin Durant on top. They were up 3-1, and then something happened to Chris Paul, which was all too common in his career. He got injured in a big moment, and the Rockets lost. After getting knocked off by the Warriors in the second round the following year, Harden, as he frequently does, decided he didn't want to coexist with Chris Paul anymore, and Houston shipped him off to basketball purgatory in Oklahoma City. Once Paul got to Oklahoma City, there were immediate rumors about a contract buyout. After that wasn't done, there were rumors about him getting traded again to either the Heat or the Lakers. With his contract being as big as it was, he was stuck on the Thunder. This had the makings of a sad end to his Hall of Fame career, but instead, Chris Paul would call this his proudest year. He was able to rebuild his image, and he took the Thunder to the playoffs. He was so close to beating the Rockets in the playoffs too, but the Thunder lost in 7 games. The Suns had a bunch of young talent, but they were one veteran leader away from pulling it all together, and Paul was that guy. What is it they say about Arizona and older people going there and finding a new spring in their step? Well, the Suns finished his first year as a #1 seed in the Western Conference and finally made it to an NBA Finals. But it wasn't meant to be, and the Suns fell to Giannis and the Bucks in 6 games. He was also hurt in these finals as well. Shocker. Chris Paul is still searching for that elusive championship ring, while the Suns have now become the villains of the league. That's mainly because of Paul, but more on that in a minute. But I talked about it in the beginning. Here are Chris Paul's flaws and why he's not a top 5 point guard. Durability. As I stated earlier, Chris Paul disappeared at the end of important series. The only thing that is reliable about Chris Paul deep into the playoffs is that he can't be relied upon. He's overly unselfish. Chris Paul can score really well, but like all other pure point guards, he prefers to pass first. While this is a good quality to have for a point guard, he would sometimes pass up open looks, and rarely when his teams needed him to step up and be their primary scorer, he wasn't up to the task. He can't consistently create his own shots against elite defenses. He's very disciplined, so he's not going to take bad shots, but that also limits him. And the traditional point guard in today's NBA doesn't really mix. They're scorers now. Ball control. Chris Paul needs the ball in his hands to be the most effective. He doesn't play off the ball as well. When he was in Houston, they were at their best when Harden played off the ball. Unfortunately, Harden didn't see it that way, and that may be the reason why neither of them has a ring. So he can only really win when the other players on the court adapt to him and not the other way around. Guarding bigger players. Paul is a 7-time all-defensive team guy, so he's no slouch and is impressive at that undersize. The problem is, during playoff series, teams can exploit this weakness and often switch off bigger wing players on Paul and really pick on him a little bit. Likability. It's no secret that players on other teams don't like Paul very much. Him doing his little secret dirty plays like elbowing guys incognito just gets under other players' skin. Just ask Rajon Rondo. But it also doesn't seem like his own teammates like him as much. That seems to have changed a bit in Phoenix, but he just seems to wear on teammates, and that's not a trait you like to see in a, quote, leader of your team. Let's start with the obvious. Magic. Magic Johnson is on most people's list as the best point guard of all time, as he should be. He's 6'9", and he was an anomaly at that position. Big O, Oscar Robertson. Robertson is often passed over just because he obviously played so long ago, but the guy's numbers speak for itself, and he was getting triple doubles before it was fashionable. Isiah Thomas. Isiah is also overlooked on how good he really was. No, not that Isiah Thomas. That Isiah Thomas. He beat Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson in 7-game series. He was the best player on a legendary Detroit Pistons team. The only knock on him is he didn't play long enough. The glove, Gary Payton. His game was very similar to Chris Paul, except he was much bigger and can defend the bigger guys. He was also an unquestioned leader on those Sonics teams. John Stockton. Stockton was so overlooked, it's not even funny, but he was. He's the all-time assists and steals leader, but he doesn't get much credit. Kidd. Jason Kidd was the ultimate floor general. He can defend 4 positions. He wasn't a good shooter, but that made him that much more impressive. Yeah, towards the end of his career, he cleaned up his 3-point shot, but he could dominate a game even without scoring, and he was a leader that you wanted on your team. Jerry West, the logo. West is another old school player who probably hates the Celtics more than anyone on this earth. He lost to the Celtics in 6 different NBA finals, but guess what? He was so good, he was named the finals MVP in a losing effort, the only time it's ever been done in the NBA. And then Paul, he's there at number 8. Now, some people consider AI, Allen Iverson, and Steph Curry point guards, and they would both be ahead of Paul, but for this list, we were calling them shooting guards. So what do you think? Did we get this list right?